I'm laughing because I can't read my notes. And we're live, right? Are we live? I sure hope we're live. It says live. Let's assume we're live. Gonna wait a few moments, as I always do, for people to join in. Oh, look, I'm gonna throw my pen around. I'm gonna drop my pen because I'm not very athletic. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Thanks for joining me in... Today is Blur's Day, because who knows what day it is. I don't know how many of these I've done at this point. I think this is the 11 billionth installment of Geek Speaks Greek, or Greek Speak, or whatever I'm calling it today. Super chic Geek Speaks Greek. I like that one. Thanks once again for Word Bookstores for hosting us for this. Word Bookstores, independent bookstore in Brooklyn and across the river in Jersey City. They're a terrific bookstore. There's a lot of different ways you could support them. Coolest new way to support them is just throwing this out there. I'm teaching a 3-day comics making course next week, which will be, it's not going to be broadcast on Word. It's something you have to sign up for. It actually costs a little something, but it's worth it because every cent goes to support this great independent bookstore. We're going to be going over the things about making your own characters, how to design them, drawing them from different angles so you get the consistency. I'm going to go over the beats of what actually makes a story, how you can tell a good story, and then we're going to actually create a comic together. It's going to have some real educational value. You can go to wordbookstores.com. There's a whole page up there for it right now describing more about this 3-day, one-time only class that I'll be doing there. And I hope some people join. If not, I'll still be doing these things, so you'll still get your George fix somehow or some way. So I just coughed because I made myself laugh. Normally I do a lot of more babbling, but we got so much artwork to show you guys today. Yesterday I was sharing the tale of Heracles, not Hercules, Heracles. And it seemed to really inspire some stuff. We also got a lot of artwork from some of the past things we've gone over. So I want to share some of these, including, okay, just to start off the bat, this is one we got from Joseph the other day. He missed the deadline for yesterday's show just in time. He drew a baby Hephaestus. That is really good. We had another baby Hephaestus yesterday. We had like the bright red hair. I love this. I love how cranky he is. I love the drawing of the hair. This is terrific. And then, here's him when he grows up. Look at that. He's rocking the... It kind of looks like he has dreads, which is interesting. I could have gone with the dreads look. I'm not sure that's the look I want for him. But so what else do we have? Here we have some... Okay. These are super duper good. This is by Dr. Caitlin Pruitt. She is the head of Latin at her school. Look at her baby Heracles. This is by far better than the thing I drew yesterday, which was not great. And then she drew older Heracles. Again, better than what I did. And she mentions like how exciting it is to like, you know, draw like kind of, I think this is her. No, I'm actually ascribing something somebody else wrote. She didn't say anything like that. But yo, those are amazing. Here are some drawings we got from, these are some older ones. This is going back to one of the first ones we did. Ingrid drew some pictures. Here's Hestia. This is one Hestia. And here's another Hestia. This is baby Hestia. I love this so much. I'm actually, baby Hestia is a character in the 12th and final Olympians book I'm working on right now, Dionysus. And I like this so much. I'm not drawing my Hestia like this, but I'm kind of want to draw my baby Hestia look like that. She kind of looks like one of the ghosts from Pac-Man set on fire. I kind of like it. Let's see. Oh, this is really cool. So the other day we did Medusa, our first ever monster. I think our first official departure from the realm of goddess or god. And so we got this wonderful drawing. And then someone cute holding the drawing too. There's Medusa. And then hiding behind this pillar is Perseus with his shield. And he's, you know, we all know it's going to happen. It's end badly for Medusa. And look at all the soldier guy, statue guys. They were all, like, she's shooting them with arrows, probably mistaking them. That comes from Chloe, 7 years old. Chloe, you're an amazing artist. Way to go. We're not even halfway through these things. I'm probably not going to be able to do them all today because there's so many. Here is a drawing from Eleanor of Heracles. I love the energy of this. Look, he's throwing his arms up in a mighty flex. That's a great drawing. Great color on that one, too. Excellent work, Eleanor. Remember I was about to say something before? Here is... Oh, this is such a big drawing. Here we go. This is a drawing of Heracles where he's thinking, shouldn't have taken those cows, because, he has to redo that myth as we talked about because he accepted payment. Another great drawing. This one comes from, boy, you think I would have this more together at this point, right? That comes from Micaiah. She says it's her favorite one to draw so far because it's fun to draw someone scruffy instead of all these perfect people. I agree. This is one of the reasons people wonder why, after Olympians ends, I'm going to take a little break from Greek mythology to do the Norse gods. One of the reasons is I'm a little bit tired of drawing incredibly perfect, beautiful-looking people. I want to draw some real uggos, and, man, let me tell you, Thor, he's all hunchbacked and over-muscled and bristly red hair and glowing eyes, and, Loki, he's got, scars where his lips are sewed together. They're not attractive. We say Hephaestus is the ugliest Olympian, and I still draw him kind of hunky. So, we're going to see, I get to, really sink my teeth into some real ugly people here. Let's see. Oh, I want to share this one because this is great. Look at this amazing Heracles. Look at the lion of Nemea's skin laying atop him. I love it. I love the color. Everything about that is amazing. And thank you for calling him Heracles, not Hercules. That came from Ella. Ella, excellent. And this is the one I'm going to close out on because this one is pretty detailed. And it's going to be a little bit hard to see, perhaps. So I actually typed out the text because if you remember, we spoke about the idea. We spoke yesterday. I did probably a very controversial act of assigning certain Olympians to certain houses of Hogwarts. And I'm sure people are very mad about some of my choices and things. But we also spoke about the idea of Olympians being members of the zodiac. And this person, Andrew, he actually went through, he drew all the Olympians as the signs of the zodiac and really briefly wrote who he thinks would go where. I'm going to say it real quick. Sagittarius is Aphrodite because Sagittarius is loving, intensive, and also the, arrows. Scorpio is Hades because he's powerful and self-reliant. I'm Scorpio. I approve. Aquarius is Demeter because in order to have a harvest, you need water to grow things. That makes sense. I can agree with that. Taurus is Hephaestus because he's stubborn. Taurus. Yeah. Taurus over there. Leo, Zeus, king of the jungle, king of the gods. Makes sense. Libra, Athena, the balance between war and peace. I'm going to hold this up so you can see this better because they did drawings of all these. Cancer, Hermes, honestly, because his shell reminded me of Hermes' helmet. Okay. Gemini is Artemis and Apollo, the twins. That makes total sense. Virgo, Hera, because she's clever and creative. Hey, I like that. That's a good Hera, not for some evil reason for once. Aries is Aries because putting him with anyone else would be too confusing. That we really nipped a who's on first sort of situation in the bud there. Pisces is Poseidon because he's a fish. Of course, it's Poseidon. And then Capricorn is Dionysus because he hangs out with satyrs and other magical woodland creatures. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know that much about astrology aside from some stuff about Scorpio because, as I mentioned, I'm Scorpio. But I like that a lot. I wanted to share that. So, Assistant Nicole just said under her breath, but loud enough for you to hear, Apollo's totally a Scorpio. So let's throw this open for debate. Let people fight about this. Pretty hard not to make him the twin, the Gemini, because he is one of the twins. So that's one duo, but today we're talking about another duo. In fact, I coined this before. I'm so proud of it. I can use my joke again. Mother-daughter relationships are very hard sometimes, and we're going to be talking about the mother of all mother-daughter relationships today, and that is Demeter and Persephone. Now, sometimes I talk a lot before I do any drawing. Today I want to rectify that. I'm going to start off drawing a picture of Demeter. Demeter is, of course, she is the goddess of grain. And here's the thing. Before I start drawing, I gotta talk some more. It's not that these two aren't incredibly major goddesses who don't deserve their own special to talk about just by themselves. And they will eventually as this continues. Here's the thing. In order to address some of the really core parts of them, some of the real core parts of them, Cora, get it? You maybe will later. You need to kind of address them together because they are so linked in myth and cult. Demeter is the goddess of growing things. She's the goddess of grain. Her Roman name, in fact, is Ceres, which is where we get the word cereal from. So you know how closely related she is with grain. We eat something named after her every morning. I like her a lot. My favorite way to draw her, and this isn't indicative of her mood all the time, is I love to draw kind of an enraged Demeter, which I'm going to do now. Demeter, I'm pretty sure it means something akin to Mother Earth in Greek. It's like a really early version in Greek, which makes a lot of sense because she is the one who helps things grow. There's her eyes. I draw her with golden eyes. Like her eyes, like her actual eye color is gold. If you've watched other episodes, pardon me, you know I talk about the fact that if I can find a specific textual reference to what the goddess or god was thought to look like, something was written by an ancient Greek or an ancient Roman, I use that as fact. It has to be included. And Demeter's hair color is actually mentioned many times. She's called even golden-haired Demeter or golden-tressed Demeter, depending on the translation. And that's because her golden hair, she represents the cycle of grain in her appearance, right? And when grain is ripe, when it is ready for harvesting, and she is the goddess of the harvest, it turns this golden color. So her hair is the color of ripe, golden, ready for harvest grain. So I'm not drawing her hair yet, so I don't know why I took that time. Let's give her... She's very beautiful. Another thing that's interesting about her, of the original 3 goddesses, the OG Olympians, she's the only one that takes multiple lovers. Hestia famously takes none. She just is like, you know what? I don't need any of this drama. I'm just going to go sit by myself on my hearth and you all leave me alone. Hera, of course, is married to Zeus. Now, if you watch the Hera episode, I shared my own fanfic theory about how I think that maybe there is a lost myth where she has another lover, but since that's just me being crazy wearing a tinfoil hat, we don't have any proof of that. But Demeter, there are many stories where Demeter takes different lovers. So, that's something I think is also pretty good. She's got a real, I'm drawing her in this very aggressive pose. She's a very forceful, very powerful goddess. And she's not afraid to go after what she wants. And I think, honestly, it's fair to say she's made a few mistakes. We see this with all the gods. They don't always choose their best partners. And I really let that inform my characterization of her as I depicted her in, the book that she's appeared the most prominently in is the not named Demeter, goddess of grain. It is Hades, lord of the dead. I'm going to address this now. I'm going to take a moment from my drawing. This is something I feel I need to say. Hades is actually not an Olympian. And I think all of you watching know this. But Hades is a big name god. And the reason he's not an Olympian is just a simple matter of geography. He does not live on Mount Olympus. He lives in the underworld. He doesn't come up to Mount Olympus. If you're looking at the canonical 12 Olympians is a kind of artificial construct because everybody knows there's more than 12, but 12 is a number we've ascribed to them. And by saying we, this is something that's going back to ancient Athens. They had the altar of the 12 gods. This is not a new concept. This book is really Demeter's book. If we're being fair, it should be called Demeter, goddess of grain, but Hades, lord of the dead, just is going to sell better. So I made sure she gets a prominent spot in the cover. One of these days, maybe I'll share some of the early cover sketches where she's definitely the main part of the cover, and Hades is kind of to the side, and it just didn't look right, unfortunately. So there's her face, looking aggressive. I like to think this is her in the moment when she's confronting Zeus, when she learns about Zeus's part in the abduction by Hades of her daughter. And so she's really angry. So angry that it's safe to say Zeus is pretty scared of her. And that's a good mark. If you scare Zeus, you're a pretty awesome goddess. Her hair is super fun to draw. The golden hair I talked about before. I draw her just like a curly mess of hair. Curly hair is nice to draw because you really can't make a mistake. It's just a bunch of lines. If you draw a line in the wrong spot, it's just a curl. It's like, see the way my hair is doing stuff? I have curly hair. It's like, who knows what's going on there? How would you draw that? Golden haired. Another clue, there's always a clue or two as to what the goddess or god is the god of in my drawings. Her hair is one clue, but even more, just in case you didn't get it, I always draw her with a few stalks of wheat just sticking out of her hair. Kind of like the way some gods would wear like a crown, of laurel leaves or something. We're looking at you, Apollo. She has just the few grains there in her head. There's her neck. There. We have Demeter. Demeter is the mother, one of the original OG Olympians. Now, let's talk quickly about, well, not quickly, let's talk about her daughter, because I said the two are often connected. In fact, sometimes you will see in cult, when I mean cult, I don't mean like weird, creepy guys wearing masks doing stuff, which that's whatever. Like cult is like the worshipped of these goddesses and gods, right? And you would go to a temple where she was the principal goddess being worshipped, and she would often be like in statue form or in the art form right next to her daughter, Persephone. And a lot of times in the depiction of the art, it's kind of hard to tell who's who. They would even be depicted almost identically, but one would be a bit larger. That's normally Demeter because she's the mature one, and Persephone is the growing up one. I read a really cool analysis. It's an analysis I ascribe to, and it makes so much sense. And I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating again. She is representative of mature grain ready for the harvest. And Persephone is the seed. And that's why Persephone has to go underground. She has to spend those winter months underground while everything stops growing, and she's growing underground, doing things there. And it's not until she spends her time underground that she can spring forth as this new shoot, this new growth of life. And then she eventually becomes her mom. A lot of us are doomed to grow into our parents, right? The best way to think of this is kind of like, I don't know how prevalent this is still something that people talk about, but have you ever seen that like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer special where there's Baby New Year and then he grows into Father Time and every year there's a new Baby New Year? It's kind of like that in cult, where every year Persephone kind of goes through this cycle and like becomes her mom. But not really, because her mom's still a different person, Persephone's still a different person. I'm going to draw Persephone now. Worth mentioning, just because I mentioned the Roman name of Demeter is Ceres, Persephone is Proserpina. Pretty close. I don't know if Proserpina has a special meaning. I feel like it might be a case like Hercules, where they kind of took a Greek god and kind of just corrupted the name. So like as Heracles became Hercules, I feel like Persephone became Proserpina. But Persephone does definitely mean something in Greek. And, of course, if you read the stories, her original name is not Persephone. She's originally given the name Kore or Kori, depending on how your pronunciation of it is, which just means maiden. It's not a great name. It's kind of boring. She is a maiden. She's named Maiden. It's like you could see why she changes her name. And Persephone means the bringer of destruction. So though they're both goddesses of growing things, Persephone has this very unique aspect to her, where she's also the goddess of the underworld. But before we get too much into that, I'm going to draw a Persephone. Now, we drew Persephone the other day when we did Hades, right? I believe it was. There were some Persephone drawings. But this is, I'm going to draw Persephone as we meet. That was like a more mature version of Persephone, right before she's about to spring forth from the underworld. This is going to be Persephone as we first meet her in Hades. In fact, she's not even Persephone yet. She's still Kore. She's still the maiden. There's her eyes. She's a little bit goth. I'm not saying all goths are rebellious, but I'm saying she's rebelling against her mother. As a little bit of a hint of her nature, her mom, I says, has the golden eyes. If I were to do this in color, her eyes are brown. She's the color of the soil. It's actually something she shares with her future husband, Hades. I would think that if nose rings had been invented, she'd probably wear a nose ring. I give her like black lip gloss. And we were talking about this elsewhere. She's certainly young, but if you kind of try to figure it out, she might be one of the oldest of the second generation of Olympians. A lot of times she doesn't get grouped in with them. We tend to forget about her because she doesn't spend a lot of time in Olympus, very suspiciously. She's supposed to spend half her time in Olympus, half her time in the underworld with Hades, but there's never any myths after her abduction where she's up on the surface world, up on Olympus again. So we tend to forget her. We don't think of her along the same lines as Athena and Apollo and Artemis and Hermes and all those guys. But she actually might be the oldest of that second generation of kids, if you think about it, because her mom is Demeter and her dad is Zeus. And it kind of like, you can, in some accountings of this, in fact, I believe in Hesiod, it's stated that Zeus was with Demeter before he was with Hera. So that would put her as older, than Ares, as older than Hephaestus, maybe older than Metis and Athena. Well, not Metis, but Athena and Metis, with Metis boring out of his head. I don't know. She's kind of old, but she looks young. And then my whole idea behind this is she's been kind of kept young by her mom. Imagine your mom is super duper all powerful, and she made a few mistakes when she was a kid, and she wants to make sure you don't make the same mistakes. Now, you should listen to your mom, but sometimes you don't listen to your mom, you know? And so, like, your mom is this overbearingly powerful figure. So I think with with Persephone, it kind of kept her, or Corey, I should say, it kind of kept her a little bit on the younger side than she actually was. Now, I drew her just kind of this, like, cute little shag haircut. Again, just to kind of show, to emphasize her youth. It's a youngish haircut, almost, like a little bob. But she looks really cute. I mean, I think she's, adorable. And then after she is abducted to the underworld by Hades, I have her undergo a transformation in appearance that she actually does herself as she's reborn. And so, like, if this is her as the seed, once you see her in the book, once she goes to Underworld, in fact, I'll just add on to this because I don't feel like drawing another picture. I have her wear these earrings that have this kind of root-like structure. She puts on this necklace that looks like it's made out of a spine and has, like, roots hanging off it. She is the seed beginning to sprout, beginning to take root. Her hair even, she transforms her hairdo. Instead of being this little bob sort of thing, it's like these tendrils, like roots. It's all about the growth thing, right? So this is why I want to talk about the two of them together. I think it's really important that we do link them, these two goddesses of growth and goddesses of rebirth. So I mentioned that Persephone has a big departure from her mother in that, in addition to being this goddess of spring, this goddess who heralds spring, a time of rebirth, she is the goddess, the queen of the dead. She's the queen with Hades. And there's a lot of evidence to show that she really likes this role. Not only does she choose the name for herself, Persephone, the bringer of destruction, which is much more of a death name than it is a springtime name. There's a scene in, I feel like I mention this scene almost every day, where Odysseus in the Odyssey goes down to the underworld. That's where he sees the shade of Medusa. That's where he sees the shade of the mortal half of Heracles, which is a whole thing. But when he's down there, he's voicing how terrified he is. Because he's like, this is really a place I shouldn't be. And he's worried about the things he's going to see. And who's going to be mad at him. He never mentions Hades. But he does mention Persephone. He's like, I certainly hope Persephone doesn't find me here. Which I've always been like, wow, that's interesting. Like, and I think it's like Hades, like he is the god of the dead, the original one, that's his original role. But I think he's very dispassionate about it, right? And I think this goddess of life reborn, I think she brings a lot of vivacity and a lot of passion into her ruling as the queen of the dead. And we don't really see too many stories where she does something that's really terrifying, but I think the potential is there that she has this to be like this scary force to be reckoned with. So she is the goddess of the dead, but something that the two of them are linked together in cult, not just in the growing of things. There are a series of religions. So Greek religion, ancient religion, right? There was all these different goddesses, all these different gods. There was hero worship. There was all kinds of different, and everybody, they'd all fit together. Believing in one didn't necessarily invalidate another. That was the thing about a pantheon. There was many gods. You believed in many gods and many ways to worship the gods. One of the religions that kind of formed up with these two as central figures are what we call nowadays the mystery religions. And we call them mystery religions. Oh, they were actually called mysteries back in the day too. But one of the reasons why it's such an apt name is because we don't know a lot about them. To become a member of this religion, you had to become an initiate into like a secret cult. So remember I said cults with scary masks and stuff? You probably wore masks. There was this whole cult. You would have to go through all these steps and you were brought into this new cult. And central figures were Demeter and her daughter, Persephone. And so we talked about in Hades the earlier idea of the afterlife among the Greek gods, right? You die, Hermes comes, he whisks you away to the river Styx. Hopefully somebody's put a coin in your mouth. back on Earth because you reach your mouth, you took out the coin. You give that coin to Charon, the ferry keeper. He ferries you across the river Styx. You enter the land of the dead, the fields of the asphodel. You walk around. You just kind of make sad bat noises until one day you come to the river Lethe, and then you drink of that, and then you forget all that you were. And then you just kind of stand around forever. It's pretty bleak. Now, if you, at the same time, the Greeks had this belief that if you were a hero who died bravely in battle, you would actually go to a different place, the fields of Elysium. And you see a lot, the Elysian fields, it's like a thing that we mention a lot nowadays. But it was pretty hard to get into there. You had to have lived a good life, you had to have been heroic, and you had to have been lucky enough to die heroic in battle, which if you think about it, isn't all that lucky. It's probably a lot nicer just to die one day in your sleep and be like, oh, there I am, I'm dead now. But it's like, you have to be like hacked to pieces, like doing something heroic. Very few people got a chance to go there, so the Elysian fields were pretty empty. Now, this mystery religion, from what we've been able to piece together from different sources that have survived to us, a lot of that being art and conjecture and things like this, they believed, go through that whole first step. You die, Hermes brings you to the river, you go down, and instead of just going right to the river of Lethe to forget everything that you are, you were brought before a trio of judges. And they were King Minos, King Rhadamanthus, and King, I should have looked this up before I started talking because I don't remember offhand. Let's see if I can look this up real quick. I know there's a picture. Anyway, these three wise kings, you know what, I don't even say it in here. I left it blank. That's why I don't remember. These three kings judge you, and if you led a life that was worth living, and it didn't have to be you got hacked up or something in battle. Like if you're just like a good person, and like, you know, you treated your mom right, and like, you know, you maybe did grocery shopping one time for your old neighbor, whatever it was that you did, as long as you were in the good side of things, you'd be judged. And then, tying with them, their core idea, you were reborn. You would be reborn through reincarnation. And it was kind of very similar to what you see in like religions today, like where they believe in reincarnation, where you kind of live lives over and over again until you get to this point where one day you would come before the kings and you would be a different person each time, right? And you would be judged. And then if you had led enough good lives, you would enter the fields of Elysium. And they would live in this, like, in a paradise. And that's a much more palatable version than, like, you die and you stand around in the gloom forever, which this is kind of just a stone cold bummer, right? And these two goddesses were kind of key to that. You see, there's other goddesses and gods too, like Dionysus often plays a role in this, and his role, you know, he certainly falls under the auspices of things growing and things, so it makes a lot of sense that he'd be looped in there. Mystery religions are very interesting to me. You often don't see them covered in all mythology books because some of the stuff that they espouse just goes against, like the like, you know, here's all the body we have of Greek mythology, and then there's a little tiny bit about the mystery religions, and it's very contradictory, and there's all these weird gods we've never heard of before, so a lot of times people skip it, but I think it's really worth noting, especially because two of my favorite goddesses, Demeter and Persephone, play this super key role in that, and I think that's really fascinating. Now, there's so much more I could talk about them individually. Some of the individual myths with her, some of the individual myths with Persephone. Persephone and Demeter play a key role in what I think is the most popular of all Greek myths, which is the abduction of Persephone. I already spoke about that on Hades, and I also don't want to be talking to you guys for like 20 years about this. I might do another episode down the road where I only talk about the abduction and just do some sort of special take on that. But I wanted to really today, I thought it was really important to talk about that idea of them linked in cult as goddess of life and goddess of rebirth and that cyclical nature. I thought that was something today as our first sharing of, well, it's our second with Persephone. Today, just to really share this, and then we can explore other aspects of them as we go along. And at that, I think this is probably a good chance for me to do as I normally do, to throw it open for questions. I'm seeing, right now, it looks like just a field of skulls and lots of skulls, so yes, we got the death handle. Did any questions come in earlier that we were able to see?
Not related yet, but somebody asked, for those of us with kids too young for the workshop, can we still donate somehow toward?
Oh, wow, that's super nice. So somebody wrote in, and this, like, I feel like I'm going to cry a little bit. That's such a nice thing to say. They said, for those of us who have children too young for the comics making workshop that I talked about up front, they want to know how they can still donate to Word. And A couple different ways. You could buy a gift card. That helps them out. You can go to wordbookstores.com and buy that. There is the Homeward Bound project they do. Is that what I always...
Homeward Bound Mystery Box.
Homeward Bound Mystery Box. Oh, mystery, like mystery religions. Where you can, it's like a gift buying thing. Like you can always buy books. You can just buy books and have them shipped. There's a lot of ways to do it, but the Homeward Bound Mystery Box is where you kind of give a few descriptions about what the person you're buying this for, what sort of book they might be into. And the crack book staff there, like, will actually form recommendation based on that, choose the perfect book for them, and then send them a package with a bunch of gifts and things in it. That's great. Also, I mean, you could just straight up, this is Word Bookstore's PayPal. If you just want to just be like, hey, you know what? We appreciate Word. We appreciate the things we do. We know it's been a hard time. There's a lot of people at Word who this is their job, and they're not able to work right now because everything is closed. So this is a way you could do it. Yeah. And I'm sorry that if you have a youngster who'd want to be part of that, because, I feel bad to neglect anyone. I go out of my way to make these lectures and to make my books as all ages friendly as possible. But sometimes, unfortunately, I feel like it's just going to be, and I have so many young artists who write here, so I'll still be doing stuff like this. So if you have a really enthusiastic artist who still wants to contribute, keep sending me pictures. I love them. I love seeing this stuff. That's a great first question. Okay.
So
I can see one here. Did Zeus think that Demeter would be as angry as she was? I think this is in reference to the actual abduction of Persephone, which I kind of skirted around. I'm almost taking it as read. But Zeus is Persephone's dad. Demeter is the mom. But Zeus really doesn't have much to do with it. He's just he's a bad dad. He's a bad husband, bad dad. When Zeus makes the deal with Hades for the abduction, like, this isn't a surprise to him. He's like, Hades is like, hey, man, I think I'm in love with Persephone, or Kore. And Zeus is like, cool. And they do the secret bro handshake to seal the deal. But, like, nobody tells Demeter. So I do think Zeus knew she'd be mad. Because Demeter was very protective. She didn't want the other... Like, there's a reason we don't see much of Demeter in Olympus. She was kind of kept away from other gods and goddesses because Demeter knows they're bad news, right? So Zeus purposely hid the fact that he made a deal with his brother to marry off his daughter. And then he plays dumb for like a year while Demeter's wandering around. Everything on Earth is dying. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, people can't grow anything. And he wanders about. He's still like, I don't know what happened. And when she finally finds out, she comes after him with Cryosor, her golden blade. And she knows she can't kill him, but she's going to hurt him so bad he's going to wish he was dead, is what she says. And that would be pretty bad because, I mean, this is a guy who's had his tendons cut out. Well, I wonder if he has at that point. That's probably later. But he's dealt with some real pain, and she's going to make him hurt. I mean, you can use your imagination.
Hi, so I love that you gave Kore some agency over herself in this story. How common is this version compared to the kidnapped against her will and tricked into the pomegranate version?
Okay, so somebody wrote they were very happy, or they liked that I gave Kore some agency in my retelling of the story. If you haven't read my book, Hades, in Hades, she is full-on abducted against her will, and she's made a prisoner down in the underworld. But Hades is trying his best to make it up to her, and eventually she's able to kind of reform Hades. And there's the very famous bit at the end of the story where when finally, after everyone on the surface world figures what happens, Zeus sends Hermes down to rescue her after Zeus knew she was there the whole time. And Hades is like, oh, she can't actually go because she ate 6 pomegranate seeds, although the number varies, but let's say 6. She has to spend a month each year for every pomegranate she ate down in the underworld. So, and that explains the seasons, right? Whenever, like, it's spring and summer, she's up on the surface world, everything's growing, Demeter's happy. And when she goes underground, that's when fall and winter happen. Everything dies, everything's sad and stuff. In my version of the story, she knowingly eats the pomegranates. She actually finds, like, value in her relationship with Hades, and she doesn't want to, like, never see him again. But she also wants to be able to see her mom. So she actually eats the 6 pomegranate seeds herself. And the question was, how often is that version of the story that you see where she has agency? And unfortunately, it is not common at all. There are so many versions of this story that were told in antiquity. And honestly, in virtually all of them, Persephone is basically a prop. It's really, most of the vast majority of the stories are retold. It's mainly Demeter's story. And Hades is in it too, but he's kind of in the beginning as the bad guy. We don't really see much of what's happening in the underworld. And that really bummed me out. One of the things I try to do is I really do think it's important to give agency to these characters, especially the female characters, and especially, okay, it should be Demeter's book, it is Hades' book, it's really Persephone's book. She's the main character. I wanted to tell from her point of view. She's kind of like this, young woman who's finally gotten out under the wing. She's finally escaped like the auspices of her well-intentioned but overbearing mother. She's kind of like abducted by this creepazoid weirdo guy, and then she has to find her place. And this is about her finding her place in two different worlds. And it's kind of, it's not a unique trait among more modern retellings. I think other people have done stuff like this, though I can't think of one off the top of my head. But yeah, it's not a common aspect of this myth.
Was Poseidon especially sympathetic to Demeter's grief during her loss of her daughter?
Wow, what a great question. Was Poseidon especially sympathetic to Demeter's grief because of the loss of her daughter? It's no secret, and it's something that is especially in Olympians. It's kind of like a thing that you could kind of see playing out, although I've never made it a huge foreground element. Poseidon is in love with Demeter. And you could see that he had in his dream world when he was in Kronos, they were married, they were horses, but they had a kid together. There's this whole version of that was my way of kind of threading in a whole series of myths where they did have a kid together as horses. It was a talking horse, weird stuff. And there's just these hints that he has these feelings for her. So yeah, it would be nice to say that Poseidon was there to be the shoulder for her to cry on. I don't see any evidence for it, and honestly, I think he probably didn't. Couple reasons. At this point, he's married to Amphitrite. He's got his own stuff going on. Plus, it is the kid that's missing is her kid with his brother. That's got to be a thing, right? That's got to be he's wait, you're already married to Hera, and then you also have a baby with Demeter, and you know why I felt about Demeter. Zeus is I don't care. I'm king of the gods. So I feel if Poseidon was a more emotionally, I'm going to say George O'Connor found dead in a tsunami, but if he was a more emotionally aware god, I think he would, but I feel he probably was too wrapped up in his own stuff to really care.
Did Zeus and Persephone ever really interact?
That's a good question. Did Zeus and Persephone ever really interact? There is a real scarcity of myths of Persephone where she is actually interacting with the other Olympians. It's one of the reasons that led to me making her choose to stay in the underworld, because by my reading of it, she's always in the underworld. She very rarely comes up. She has the option to, but she elects to stay in the underworld with her husband, Hades. I don't remember, honestly, if I kept it in the final book or if it was something that was in an earlier draft, because Hades went through a lot of rewrites until I got it down. There was a whole big chunk with Orpheus and Eurydice that just got cut. But there was a whole thing where basically I had it established in a line of dialogue that Demeter was kind of I've seen the sort of father you are to Zeus. And she's you know what? She's your child, but I'm raising her myself. This is my daughter. You're the father, but she's my child. And I think that's, so I feel Zeus was probably I don't know, hopefully on birthdays he gave her something, but I feel he had a lot of other stuff he was thinking about. I feel she was, in my head, I feel she was Persephone was raised off to the side of Olympus. And it was kind of maybe more of a treat when they saw her. Again, coming up to the idea that she's not often thought of as one of the second generation Olympians, even though she's arguably the oldest of them.
Have you ever thought about what Demeter would be like if she liked Persephone marrying Hades?
Question. What would be, because I did try to choose to draw her in this very aggressive pose here, what would Demeter be like if she actually approved of the marriage of Hades and Persephone? That's interesting, right? I kind of feel some aspect of Demeter would probably fall under the idea, she's you know what? No one's good enough for my daughter. That's not an uncommon thing for parents to take. You know, you pour all your love and all this caring and all this raising and all your efforts into creating this child. And especially this, where, as I just explained, it's kind of like a single mother situation. Like, she did this all on her own. And then I feel like who's going to ever be able to live up to that, right? Now, for it to be your big, weird older brother, which, like, let's not even get into that whole thing, right? I feel like that's going to be a hard pill for her to swallow no matter what. But I do feel like there's a side of her that I haven't gotten to explore as much, Demeter, where this is kind of playing on the idea she is the Earth Mother figure, right? Like, as I said, her name literally means, like, Earth Mother. Like, I feel like there's a side of her that is very loving. She has a lot of love to give. So I feel like, and I hope this is the case, I think she eventually even softens up on the idea of Hades. She's never going to be like, it's always going to be an awkward thing in their family, for sure. But I think she's eventually just like, I think she does have a lot of love. She probably has like really great holiday dinners over her house, you know. You come over and she just like, she's the one who just does everything. She probably makes a lot of like, woo, noises and stuff and just has a good time. I bet you she has some fun with Dionysus's wine. I'm ascribing a lot of my own personal beliefs about her, but I think, you know what? She's probably the most fun to play, like to hang around with out of the original three goddesses. Hera's got to be pretty serious. Hestia, who knows what she's doing? She's going to be like, you know, singing and dancing.
Did Demeter have any other children?
Did Demeter have any other children? She has a couple of demigod children. I can't. Oh, and she had the, I'm forgetting the horse's name. I can look this up later. She did have the child with Poseidon. That was a talking horse. That's a whole other alternate thread. I think she has a child with the man who she taught, he's a mortal man, that she taught the art of like farming to. Like, that's a gift from the gods. I'm probably forgetting someone major. I'm running through a list right now of the gods. I can't think of any other significant children she's had, but there was definitely a few demigods in there.
Do you think anyone else was suspicious of Zeus's involvement with the abduction, like Hera or Hermes or Athena?
Oh, what a cool question. Was anyone else suspicious of Zeus's involvement in the abduction of Persephone? As I said really quickly, Persephone, it was a deal made between Hades and Zeus. And what other gods were suspicious? I think there probably were quite a few gods suspicious. And the asker of the question lists off a few of the main culprits. Hermes almost certainly knew. Hermes is the only Olympian who is able to traverse to the underworld, because he is the god of boundaries, so he can cross boundaries. Even Zeus can't do that. But he probably knew what was going on. He's also in so many places at once, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually heard the initial conversation wherever it occurred. On Olympus, on Earth, probably somewhere on Earth, because that was the in-between area. I'm assuming Athena probably had some educated guesses. As Athena came of age in Zeus's skull, she knows the way he thinks better than anyone, including himself. So she probably understands the way he works. And she's probably like she's kind of like the way Sherlock Holmes, they do in the movies. He looks around, sees the clues. She probably saw the clues and was like, yeah, this looks fishy. Like why would Hades do this? Helios, we know, knew, because he saw it. That's actually a factor in the book. And also, I believe Hecate knows. She plays a part in the book where she actually guides Demeter to Helios. And she's, I think I talked about her briefly in the Hermes episode, now lost to the sands of time, sadly. But she's kind of the female counterpart of Hermes. She was the goddess of boundaries. So I don't think she could cross over into the underworld the way he can. She's not quite Olympian. But I think she would have been privy to some things as well. So yeah. And you know what? Honestly, probably like I could see Aphrodite just being like, oh, this was clearly worked on. Because she, affairs of the heart, she's going to have an insight into that.
So who would be Persephone's friends among the second generation of gods while growing up? Would she get along with Artemis?
Oh, that's really cool. Who do you think among the second generation Olympians would have been her friends growing up? And the original question asker said, would she get along with Artemis? I think she would get along with Artemis, actually. I've talked in previous episodes how Artemis and Apollo were almost like a separate clique inside the Olympians, and she is too. So, there's Artemis, Apollo, and Leto. They're kind of off doing their thing. They're with within the greater family structure, but they have their little side thing. And then I think just by virtue of the way that Demeter raised her, that I feel like Persephone would have had a side thing too. So there would have been a sort of kinship there. At the same time, as we see in the book Hades, there's a scene where Apollo is serenading Persephone in the opening of the story, and Demeter comes up. She's like, no, you don't talk to my daughter. So I think any of the male gods, Demeter being Demeter, would have kept them away. So Persephone makes a lot of sense for them to have had a connection with Artemis. I wonder... I don't know that Athena is so interested in getting friends. I could see like maybe Persephone talking to her and just kind of like Athena being a little bit, not intentionally, but kind of weird. Athena's, has a bad relationship with her friends. There's the story where she accidentally... Oh, there. Internet's been spotty today, guys. So that's I like that. I do think that it would be a second generation. I think she'd be pals with Artemis. That makes a lot of sense. Two-part question.
Why pomegranate seeds in the first place? And then do Greeks hate pomegranate seeds now?
The question is, why pomegranate seeds? Why is that the fruit often ascribed to what she ate that kept her down there? And do Greeks now hate pomegranate seeds? Pomegranate seeds, because pomegranate seeds are a symbol of fertility. In fact, the pomegranate seed in the ancient days was not a symbol unique to Persephone. We tend to think of nowadays, you see the pomegranate, even if you're not talking Greek myth, you probably think of her. But the pomegranate was actually a symbol of Hera, for instance, because she was, among other things, as we talked about, the goddess of childbirth. So I think that they chose the pomegranate seed because it was that symbol of fertility, and tied in so core to these two goddesses is the concept of rebirth, fertility. And as far as whether they hate them, gosh, I hope not, because pomegranates are delicious.
Do you think Hades Town is an accurate depiction of the Orpheus and Eurydice myth, and what are the biggest differences?
Oh, okay. So this is a question about the musical Hades Town. Currently not playing on Broadway. Was currently playing Broadway. In fact, I had tickets to go see it again in just a couple of weeks, and now Broadway is unfortunately closed. Wait, it was this week? I was going to see it this week! I would be getting ready to... I'm just sad. I'm going to go sit in the corner and weep now. Hades Town is amazing. If you get a chance to see this musical, definitely see it. I hope it's made into a film. The question was it an accurate depiction of the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. And honestly, as much as I loved it, it takes some pretty significant departures from Orpheus and Eurydice as I understand it. It's for good reasons. So Orpheus is he's this guy, he sings real nice. He sees Eurydice, they fall in love. He makes a case for why she should like him. They have a kind of series of meet cutes and stuff. But then the world gets really hard and they can't find food anymore. And the play, it's kind of like Hades actually seeks her out in the musical, and he kind of he comes up and he does this, the guy who plays Hades is the best, and he's got this amazingly deep bass voice and this kind of super sexy southern drawl, and is like, "Hey little songbird," and you're just like, "Oh, I just got goosebumps just remembering it." It's so cool. And he makes a deal with her very similar to the way the Christian devil would, in later folklore, where he's like, "Sell me your soul, sell me your soul." And he kind of works out this deal where Eurydice goes down to the underworld to work on he's building a wall, right? Or is it the train that she's working on? He works on the train. The train takes you underworld. There's a lot of stuff that they update for modern stuff. It's pretty cool. Hermes is the conductor of the train because he's got to travel. It crosses the boundaries. It's really smart. But in my understanding of the myths, Eurydice, Hades isn't actively seeking her out. He doesn't care. I've said about Hades before, he's the patient god. He just has to wait, and everybody gets to be his eventually. Eurydice, oh, you're a mortal woman? Yeah, let me just wait for me what's an afternoon, and you'll be down here if I really wanted you to be down here so hard. So there's that really big departure where he makes her sign this, contract, and he brings her down. And I guess she dies, although they're kind of vague about that. And then Orpheus comes down. The part I love really about Hades Town, it's actually less the Orpheus and Eurydice stuff. It's the relationship between Persephone and Hades. They're kind of going through a period where they're growing apart a little bit, but they still love each other. It's beautiful. It's so well done. I love it. So it's not accurate. You wouldn't you wouldn't be able to pass a test on what Orpheus and Eurydice was about by watching Hadestown, because what's all this mention of trains and nightclubs? But it's still an amazing story. I recommend it to everybody.
Who are Iris's parents?
Who are Iris's parents? Wow, I'm gonna have to actually look at my own thing because I don't know that offhand. I feel like it's Nyx. Am I right in saying this? Iris is she is one of the messenger gods. Hermes is always typecast as one, and Iris is another. She seems to work almost exclusively for Hera, and she's not even listed in this book. I feel like it might be Nyx, but you know what? I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. I should know that offhand. I don't. Does anybody in the questions know?
Not counting Hermes, who is the fastest god?
Not counting Hermes, who was the fastest god? Well, there's this one, it's not even a myth. It's a kind of a recording of like a supposed historical event where it's the supposed first Olympic Games where the gods competed against each other. And in that story, this little snippet, it's recorded that Apollo ran faster than Hermes. Now, that makes no sense, I think, personally, but it's worth mentioning here. And I could see, Apollo certainly gave Hermes the best race of his life when he was 2 days old, where he chased him all around creation trying to capture him to give him the spanking to end all spankings because of all the punking he had done for him. So I'd say Apollo's got some movement in those legs. So, Last question, because we are nearing the end. Wow, this one really went fast today. Last question. Let's hear it.
What is your favorite myth?
What is my favorite myth? Well, I think I've mentioned this before, but I think it was one of the episodes that was lost to the sands of time. My favorite myth is the story of Typhon. Now, I'll have to do an entire episode where I talk about this because it's really worth talking for the entire time. But Typhon is the last son of Mother Earth. He's this giant monster sent by Mother Earth to overthrow the Olympians for reasons I'll get into. Well, we know why. She's mad at them because they've imprisoned the Titans. And he's got 100 heads. Each head is a different species of creature or monster or whatever. They all speak different languages. They all vomit poison and breathe fire. He fills the sky with his body, and he has these huge black wings that scrape the stars. So he's like interstellar. He's so big. And he's like a storm god, too. But he's not a god. He's a monster. So he's kind of on this level with Zeus on that. Maybe even more because he's so enormous, right? And he's given the sickle of Kronos. And he defeats Zeus in battle. And there's so much stuff that goes on into this thing. The gods flee Olympus. They go to to Egypt to hide out. It's the Greek explanation for who the Egyptian gods were. It's got a really cool bit of trickery that involves Pan, who's one of my favorites, and Hermes. There's everything in this story. It's so amazing. And I'm going to have to do one. I think that'll be a special one, just doing Typhon. But that's my favorite Greek myth. And so we're going to cut out soon, so I'm just going to thank everybody who, somebody wrote, mine is probably Persephone and Hades. Yeah, you and everybody. Everybody loves that story. I'm going to close up today and say thank you all so much for coming and watching. Thank you, Word. If you get a chance to draw some pictures, send them to me at georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. If you want to draw either Persephone or Demeter or any of the goddesses or gods or monsters or heroes we've spoken about before, anybody you want. If you've missed an episode and you want to catch up on it, all of my episodes get archived on my YouTube page, George Olympians. You can see them there, all except for those first two. The Apollo one, that was Apollo Asclepius and Hermes Pan lost to the winds of time. I'm going to redo them at some point because I have so much to say about all those guys. And thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow at 4. What? Oh, yeah, and reminder, if you're interested in that workshop, the 3-day comics workshop next week, go to wordbookstores.com or go at my Instagram, @TheGeorgeO'Connor. In the link in the bio, you can go right to the page. You can sign up for this workshop. 3-day comics workshop with me. We'll do it over Zoom. We're going to make comics together. I'm going to show you stuff you've never seen. It's going to be super cool. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow at 4. Bye-bye.